Hello.
Hi.
I wanted to just say that last time it was kind of complicated. The numbers are talked about. The next two videos are going to be similar. Lots of numbers and times. And I have to make a confession. David and me have been talking about these passages for 40 years now, and I still go blank. I still don't get it. I still have trouble with it. So I just wanted to say, don't be discouraged when you're listening to these videos, and if you don't get it, if you're like me and you too many numbers and you have meltdown, because notes are going to be made available at the end of the Daniel series. We do have PDF that we can send out on this.
The important thing is you're still trying.
Yes.
Very trying.
Exactly.
So we wanted to concentrate upon the verse that says that Messiah will be cut off after the 69 weeks and have nothing. The Watchtower Bible says nothing for himself.
Right.
Nothing. And yet you realize, of course, this Messiah we're talking about, this is Jesus.
Yes.
How can he have nothing? Well, in reference to the Messianic promises as a whole, although King of the Jews is on his cross, that's in mockery, as it were.
Right.
He's not treated as King of the Jews by the Jews.
But we talked about last time that they were in expectation of the Messiah coming. And his disciples obviously recognized him as the Messiah. And so they were expecting great things to happen.
Well, how
and
come?
yet they would have known this passage. They would have heard the nothing. I would say it's because when they were looking at the passages, they were looking at a vindication, a victorious king coming. And the parts that you don't like, you tend to just either ignore or read past. So it's common to all of us to do that. Mm-hmm. What we don't like, which doesn't make us happy, we ignore or get on to the good stuff. I think that's what they did.
So the cutting off of Messiah then is not wish fulfillment for a Jew in the first century, and it wasn't ever wish fulfillment. Yeah. And that's why Messiah is still a debated subject among Jews today. Some are expecting two Messiahs, one who will get cut off, the son of Joseph, and one who will be the king Messiah. Two Messiahs. Well, we know as Christians a different Messiah.
Yeah.
I think in that way of thinking about our human tendency in neglecting that which is inconvenient to our theory or our feelings, we ought to make a comparison with Matthew 23, a famous passage if you're a Jehovah's Witness, because they use it as a proof text to prove that the Jews are permanently out of the picture. And yet they, as we know, use it incompletely. So maybe we should read the whole passage, 23 verses 36 to 39 in Matthew 23.
Okay, it'll be familiar to you. Truly I say to you, all these things will come upon this generation. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the killer of the prophets, and the stoner of those sent forth to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together, the way a hen gathers her chicks together under her wings. But you people did not want it. Look, your house is abandoned to you. That's as far as the Watchtower usually quotes.
In the reasoning book, that's the end of the quote, right?
That's right. But verse 39 says, For I say to you, you will by no means see me from henceforth until you say, Blessed is he that comes in Jehovah's name. This is Jesus talking. And he does come again.
So the end of the story for Jerusalem is not your house is abandoned to you.
Yeah.
And yet when you're a witness, of course, that's where you cut off the narrative. And I think we've alluded to this in a couple of the other videos. This thing psychologists know as confirmation bias. You go to the text looking for the thing. You go to life. You go to reality. You go to facts looking for that which will confirm your bias.
Right.
And of course the Watchtower is an extreme case. But Christians do this too.
Right.
Even
with this passage.
If Peter and the apostles couldn't see that Messiah was being cut off from Daniel 9, That's a proof to us that we're all fighting that bias all the time.
We all have that tendency.
Now, Harry Ironside, when he's talking about this Daniel passage, he goes to Luke 18 for a reference, because he says that Christians do what the two men in the temple do, but most of them do what the first man who went up to the temple does. The one who says, "I thank you, God, that I'm not like other men," and then he lists his good stuff.
Right.
The other man who can't even look up to heaven and says, "Be merciful to me, a sinner." Well, those are always in the minority, it would seem. Most of us like to compare ourselves with other people. So Ironside, when he's applying this idea about different interpretations of Daniel and different interpretations of prophecy, understands that this confirmation bias is there even among Christians. So when we're thinking about God's relationship with Israel, of course, many of us want to believe that Christians are in, Israel is out. Jehovah's Witnesses are not alone in that.
Yeah.
There's either one group of God's people, those who are faithful to God, or there's another group, and they are the unfaithful.
But Ironside is drawing on the example of Daniel, though, as being one who doesn't do that.
Yeah.
He's more compassionate and understanding to his own people.
Yeah.
And he puts himself in with them.
He's,
we should try and imitate that.
Daniel regards himself as part of the failure, even though we have no idea that he was unfaithful in any way. He regards himself as part of the community that has failed.
Right.
And Ironside is reminding us that we Christians need to think of, if instead of pointing the finger at different Christian groups that we disagree with, we are part of their failure.
Yeah. It's
if
all
we think like Daniel.
One body.
One body. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also thought that we should reference the fact that a lot of people who go to this section of Daniel, a lot of commentators, even conservatives today, believe that most of it was fulfilled in the days of the Maccabees, which is about 165 BC. But no matter how you do the numbers here, even if you're not good at numbers, you can't make the numbers stretch further than the first century to the period of Jesus and the apostles. On the other hand, you can't make them fit the period of the Maccabees. No matter how you juggle Daniel's period, the Babylonian exile, and the Maccabean period, 165 BC, the numbers don't fit. So the only possible explanation for the 70 weeks is to take us into the first century BC. We can quarrel and differ over the exact year, but the point is we're within the generation of Jesus.
Right. So when I read this passage and it talks about the weeks, the 70 weeks, I get like, what are they talking about? Why couldn't they just make it simple? Why couldn't they just say around 500 years?
Well, Jews don't think that way. They're trained not to think in terms of round numbers like us did, digital numbers, like groups of 10 and hundreds and thousands.
Yeah.
They think of sevens. So when you look at the numbers, and I puzzled over this for a long time, 2 decades actually, I used to meditate on this prophecy and I marveled over it, but there's one thing I couldn't figure out, which is why 62, why 69? And then someone pointed out that the 6 things that have to be accomplished by the end of this period, the 6 of them.
Right.
And then I thought, oh yeah, 62 and 69, they're 6s in the Sabbath system. Just as 70 is 10 times 7, well, the 6 that corresponds to that is 69. Do you follow me? 62 and 69 are 6s in the sabbatical system.
You were saying that's like a human number.
A human number, as Revelation tells us.
Right.
So 6 is the human number. Get that from Genesis chapter 1. The day that man was created. So throughout the Bible, 6 is the human number. So the fact that we've got 6s in this chapter shouldn't surprise us. It fits in.
Yeah.
And it's not finished. The 7 would be the complete number, but when Messiah comes, he's cut off.
Yeah. And
69, not 70.
And you were saying that 7 is because they're always thinking in terms of the Sabbath.
Yeah.
So the 7 is
Cycles
the way a Jewish person would think.
Yeah.
And so for me, that did help me with this passage, although don't ask me to say what David just said and explain it.
Well,
but it does help me to understand why they don't do what I would do. That they have a different way of thinking.
It's
like
not
if you've
a
ever
round
done
number.
math, like if accounts with your husband, the way I do it is way different than the way he does it, but we come to the same end
Do we?
conclusion most times.
So he could have said 500 or approximately 500. He could have said 490, but he doesn't say 490. He says 77s,
Yes.
which when you break it down is 7 times 7 times 10.
Okay.
So in the next segment, we'll talk about the time count in the rest of the book of Daniel, which runs to chapter 12 now. It's one continuous narrative from chapter 8 to the end of 12. And we often forget, because of the chapter divisions, that chapter 10 through 12 in Daniel is the continuation. And there's more time features in there. But this is the one we need to know.
More numbers
The
to
70
look
weeks.
forward to.
Aye.